Welcome home, brave heroes. I'm Ash, this is HeroQuest, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Old World Armoury by Nehekharan. This deck of cards differs from other third-party HeroQuest add-ons in that it actually is inspired by the likes of Warhammer Fantasy Battles and Warhammer Quest, and this deck actually has optional supplemental rules to use the Power Dice. Another product available by the same creator, or will be shortly available. So please follow the links in the description below to check these things out and keep an eye on future releases. Now, there are a lot of variations of the different colored dice out there for HeroQuest. And when I say different colored dice, I'm not talking about the official releases of the HeroQuest dice, the ones that come with the different expansions, the same 6 dice, just in a different color. I'm talking about the homebrew fan-made dice that have different configurations of faces. And these dice are always super interesting to me and one of my favorite homebrew items because they offer so much potential in changing the battle mechanics of the game. You can literally make a brand new weapon that operates completely differently than the existing weapons in HeroQuest because it could use the power dice instead of the regular dice. So, for example, if you get a white die, which is commonly the HeroQuest standard, it's going to have obviously 6 faces being a d6. 3 of those faces will be skulls, 2 of the faces will be white shields, and 1 of the faces will be a black shield. This is pretty much the standard distribution. This is the weight upon which all of the combat in the game is based, and it does not change. However, a fan-made die, the black die, for example, gives us 4 skulls, 1 white shield and 1 black shield, meaning that whatever item another homebrewer might want to create, whatever weapon, whatever power-up, whatever hero, monster, whatever the case may be, this entity or this item will have a 16.6 repeating chance % more of rolling a skull. Now, whether this is bad or good, that depends on the context and what it is you're trying to create. But if you have to fight a monster that only rolls black dice, it is going to have the exact same chance to defend itself when you attack it as it would were it using white dice, standard HeroQuest dice. But if it's attacking you, it has a higher chance of getting successful attack rolls because of the extra skull on the die faces. You could also use the black dice example for heroes. A hero would have a higher chance to attack, but a lower chance to defend if they had to use the black dice to attack and defend because the hero has 1 less white shield. A hero would have the exact same chances now as a monster of defending successfully. The power dice are not required to enjoy the Old World Armoury, however, and you'll see exactly what I mean as we take a look at many of the cards in this really nicely designed deck. First off, let's just admire the collection of weapons and shields on the back here along with the text. And these are HeroQuest 2021 sized cards, meaning they will mesh perfectly well with your 2021 HeroQuest game system. We have several cards here that will help us actually explain how to use the deck, as well as introduce it in general. Welcome to the Old World Armoury. This deck greatly expands the existing range of equipment that the heroes can buy to fight Zargon's minions. The cards in the deck become available to the heroes when they visit the merchant in between dungeons. Shuffle the deck, draw 5 cards. This is the selection of items that the merchant has in stock at this time. Repeat this after each dungeon. Keywords. The items in the deck use keywords to represent special rules. These are explained on the following reference cards. Now, these cards are just single-sided, so they'll be a bit more digestible than some of those double-sided rules cards that we get. No hate to any of those designs, by the way. Armor piercing. This attack cancels 1 black shield of the defender. Attack X, the number of combat dice used when attacking with this weapon. Charges X, the number of times this item can be used. Charges are regained in between dungeons. Cumbersome. You may only roll 1 movement die when moving. Defense plus X. When defending, you may roll X additional combat dice. Entangle. When attacking, if you roll a white shield, the target misses its next turn. Evasive. You may re-roll 1 black shield. For each item with this keyword, you may re-roll 1 black shield. There are other keywords as well, such as fast, impact, precise, pummeling, range X, reach X, and slow. And scatter, spellcasters, spellcaster only, sword and shield, and unreliable. When attacking with this weapon, if all dice show black shields, the weapon is jammed or unusable for the rest of the dungeon. When you roll 4 or more black shields, the weapon also misfires. You take 3 points of body damage. Interestingly enough, at the very bottom, we have the dwarf ignores the unreliable keyword, giving the dwarf just that much more utility throughout our beloved game. Power dice. The power dice rules used on the Old World Armoury cards are optional. They're optional. This way the deck can also be used by players who don't own a set of power dice. When an equipment card shows one or more power dice icons, this means the hero using this item may replace standard dice with the equivalent power dice when attacking or defending with this item. For example, the Claymore has attack 4 and shows power dice, black and red on white. When attacking with this item, you may roll 4 dice, 2 standard dice, 1 black power die, number 2, and 1 white power die, number 9. So the power dice indicated in the block will replace your regular dice if you have a set of power dice. And that's, again, optional. Otherwise, it's just going to be attack 4 regular dice for the Claymore. Stars. Items that use power dice often have a star rating shown on the card. This is an indication of the power level of the item. At the start of a new dungeon, players count all stars shown on the equipment of their heroes. This is the number of power dice that Zargon can draw from the bag of power dice. Zargon can add a power die to any roll he has to make during the dungeon. After he spends a power die like this, add it back to the bag of power dice. Hands. Some items have a one-handed or two-handed icon on them. This indicates if the item needs both hands to be used or just one. For example, a two-handed sword cannot be combined with a shield. And that is the complete rules and instructions and introduction to the Old World Armoury. Let's look at these cards. We've got a battle axe with an attack of 4, impact, and slow. It's worth 400 gold, and it is two-handed. We've got a blunderbuss, a 3-star weapon. It's two-handed, it has an attack of 3, a ranged of 8, it's unreliable, it does have scatter, and it has 4 charges. It can use 2 purple dice and 1 white. Now, the white die here, I may have implied that it was different when I said red on white earlier, and I did mean that. This is different than the standard white dice that you get with HeroQuest. Again, optional, just throwing that out there. The bola, the bow, an attack of 2, ranged of 12, and it's fast. Fast means when attacking, you may reroll 1 combat die. I really like that keyword. I really like this system already. I'm already a big fan of this system. Keywords can be a very clumsy thing to manage in homebrew. Keywords added to one of the simplest and fastest game systems ever just kind of can feel cumbersome, like you have to keep looking up things on tables or remind your players what things mean. But so far, this feels pretty elegant, and I really like the keyword fast, and I like how fast is utilized. Broadsword, attack of 3, sword and shield, and pummeling. Now, sword and shield is a keyword or key phrase that means when wielding a shield in addition to this weapon, you may reroll 1 combat die when defending. I like that. That's different than the standard broadsword that comes with the game. It's more utility than the broadsword. Claymore, attack of 4, impact, and slow. Crossbow. This is an attack of 3. It can be fired up to 16 squares away, and it has armor piercing. Armor piercing means this attack cancels 1 black shield of the defender. Awesome keyword there. These mesh really, really well with the HeroQuest battle system. Dagger, attack 1, spellcasters, meaning spellcasters can use it, right? Yes, items without this keyword are by default not usable by spellcasters. And there's also a spellcaster-only keyword. The dirk, the elf bow. The dirk, by the way, this would be a really cool thing for like the wizard and pretty much any other spellcaster to have in their arsenal, because you can get up close to an enemy and you have a high chance of actually striking them and hitting them. You've got a 66% chance of rolling a die if you have the black die versus a 50% chance with the standard HeroQuest dice. The elf bow, attack of 3, ranged of 20, armor piercing, and the power dice can be 2 yellow and a white. The elven battle axe, the firearm, just firearm. I would have called this the flintlock. The flail, this has an attack of 2 and is fast, and one of its dice can be the black die. Loving the incremental adding on to the power of the weapons here. The glaive, I'm always a big fan of glaives. Attack of 2, reach of 2, and precise. Reach, by the way, is the maximum number of squares this melee weapon can attack. Reach 1 means adjacent, so just judging by how this is worded, I would take reach 2 to mean diagonal by 1 square. We'll see when we get a reach 3 what we might interpret that to be. The great pick, the great sword, the great warhammer, and we'll stop and read this one. Attack of 3, impact, slow, and pummeling. And the power dice, 1 black, 1 white. The halberd, this is the first time I've seen an attack 3, reach 2, impact precise that uses power dice of yellow and teal, maybe. Hand axe, attack 2, impact, javelin. We've got 3 charges. This is armor piercing, range of 5, attack of 2. The kopesh, this is an attack of 2 and is slow, but it does use an orange power die. The knuckle duster, the kunai. the lasso, of all things. A lasso, gray power dice. It has entangle, a reach of 3, and an attack of 1. So I would definitely allow heroes to reach 3 orthogonal spaces away, 2 diagonal spaces. I think I would do 2 diagonal spaces. Longbow, the long sword, the mace, the military pick, the net. And I love the idea of the net. Attack 2, range 3, entangle, and 2 charges. Love a net, particularly because of the Retiarius type of gladiator. Actually, a big fan of the Retiarius. The Orc Choppa, and now we're getting really deeper into the Warhammer roots, inspiration of this deck. An Orc Choppa has 1 white power die out of attack of 2 and is slow. The pistol, the quarterstaff, the rapier. I want to look through these and look for another Warhammer-ish-esque item. Well, okay, that's not exactly what I meant, but you know. The White Wolf Hammer. This has an attack of 4, impact, and pummeling, and uses 3 different power dice, 1 black, 1 orange, 1 white. It is a 2-handed weapon. The Wood Elf Hunting Spear. Attack 2, reach 2, precise, and fast. And now we're going to get into the armor. So everything that we've looked at up to this point has been weapons, and you might have thought, well, this whole thing is going to be weapons, but no, there is actually armor. I'd actually be pretty stoked if there was an artifacts section of this deck as well, but there is not. But you could kind of consider some of these to be artifacts, depending on how you look at it. Some of them are pretty special, and all of them that use the power dice, if you have a full complement of power dice to use with this deck of cards, you can treat these all as artifacts. You might be able to just rename kind of the ones that seem like they're very plain out of this deck, the 1-stars, because like a flail is a flail, you know? But because this uses a special power dice, and you're playing in the world of HeroQuest, you could be like, yeah, this is her Galazon's flail. Galazon fell in battle trying to fight the skeletons, and you found it off of his body. The breastplate, defense of 2, and it's cumbersome. 1 gray, 1 red power dice. You'll be seeing different colors of power dice here because now we're going to be using ones that are more pertinent to defense. I'd like to know about cumbersome. You may only roll 1 movement die when moving. This is different than slow. When attacking with this weapon, the defender may re-roll any number of combat dice. That is nuts. That is crazy. The defender can re-roll any number of combat dice. Wow. Chainmail. 2 power dice here can be used. Although this does have a defense of just +1, so it kind of affects your defensive ability even if you have other things on. Kind of interesting because if we come across another piece of equipment, like a helmet or something, that overreaches by allowing you to use more power dice than it has defense, this whole thing is going to kind of be a little more awkward to calculate. And indeed, the very next card is the Chainmail Coif. We're going to set these here. We're gonna build our character over time. The Cloak of Protection. Spellcasters only. The Gromril Helmet. This still works with my earlier example because it's still a total of 4 defend dice that we would have. Although if we were with a character that just had 1 defend die they could roll, I feel like all of those characters would have restrictions that would not allow them to wear this particular set of armor. But we could also be using a homebrew character that has 1 defend die that doesn't have restrictions. So in that case, this would break a little bit. You have a defense of 1 to add to the 1, another defense of 1 to add to it. And now it kind of seems like you're allowed to replace your roll with any number of these power dice. Maybe it's your choice as the defending hero, which power dice you can use. Still, that kind of opens it up to some ambiguous interpretation. The Chainmail, I put that back. The Gromril Plate. See now, I like this. Defense +2, this gives us more slots to add our power dice in. The Hide Bracers, and now that makes sense. The Hide Skullcap, the Hide Vest, the Ithilmar Bracers, the Ithilmar Helmet, Ithilmar Mail, here we go. The Kite Shield, the Leather Bracers, the Leather Skullcap. And again, I would like to kind of skip ahead and see if I can find something a little bit more, well, not exactly Warhammer inspired this time around. But we will stop at the Tower Shield, which has a defense of +1 and evasive. Can you imagine having a warrior that is able to just charge into a dungeon with this full complement of armor? We'll say you've got a barbarian, because why not? That's 2 defense dice, +1, +2, +1, +1, so 7 defense dice altogether, 6 of which are power dice, 3 of them red, 2 gray, 1 blue. And now let's get something dangerous. We'll just use a broadsword. So we've got a broadsword that has an attack of 3, sword and shield and pummeling. You could absolutely give up the shield and just take on a 2-handed weapon to get a better combat advantage. And that is the Old World Armoury. 45 weapons, 26 pieces of armor, and 6 instruction cards. A huge thank you to Nehekharan for sending me this deck. It is a sizable deck. It is by no means small in any way. And it's going to give you guys a lot of inspiration. Even if they didn't reference the power dice, this is still a really nice deck to have. It's lovely to have an alternative to the other decks of weapons out there. For HeroQuest, I feel like the keywords are done in a really elegant and simple way, and it's very effective. And I struggle with keywords in HeroQuest, so even official canon keywords like agile, these are things I kind of, be careful. Be careful. Don't allow scope creep to creep in. But no, I really like how this was done. Really, really great job to the creator on this. But the fact that these do reference the power dice make them one of the cooler pieces of homebrew that I've gotten, because the power dice are just one of my favorite additions to the game because of the wellspring of inspiration they can give to homebrewers, the abilities that you can give to a hero using the power dice as a sub-in for the regular dice, and not just the power dice, of course, but like the classic German dice that we've seen in a multitude of colors. The Mound of the Beastmen expansion is what it is because it references the homebrew set of orange dice, and this completely changes the dynamic of any enemy or any hero or any weapon that uses the orange dice, or any armor if the case calls for it. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and I really hope you check out and keep an eye on the store in the description below. So until next time, brave heroes, have a fantastic rest of your day, and bye for now.